Okay, you read the title right? Good. Now you can't blame me when this video suddenly pivots to a completely different topic, because you were warned. You were warned. Okay, but in all seriousness, yeah, obviously I'm aware of the news, which even then, obviously I am very late to it, but yes, Overwatch 2 PvE was cancelled, as I'm sure all of you have already heard, and that fucking sucks. I did consider making a full video on this, but honestly I really don't know what I'd bring to the table that wasn't already being brought up by the other 5 million people who've made a video on this. The only thing I thought I could bring is a bit more of a close insight into exactly what went wrong and why things turned out this way, and why I was still happy about Overwatch 2, at least up to this point, despite all the, writing on the wall. But honestly, if you watch a video about the downfall of Overwatch 2 from someone who is more, into Overwatch 2, you'll probably get that anyway. Now, does this mean I'm going to stop playing Overwatch? Well, no, not really. Ultimately, this is still my favorite shooter game in the world, at least my favorite one that's still alive right now. Ooh, foreshadowing. And the cancellation of the PvE doesn't really make me lose faith in the PvP gameplay, which I was already here for. So my concerns are a bit different. I've got two different concerns. They're a bit indirect. First of all, it just makes me worry what the fuck was happening in that long 3-year period where they got almost nothing done. Because that whole time, of course, we all thought they were working on the PvE. And don't get me wrong, I'm not naive. I realized they probably didn't get 3 years worth of work done in those 3 years where nothing really came out. I imagined that they had been having a lot of trouble behind the scenes with everything that we know about Activision Blizzard and how much they fucked over Team 4. And I imagined that they were probably having a lot of trouble. But at the end of the day, they've still had multiple years to get their shit together. So I thought at the very least, what was likely is that PvE probably wouldn't ever be delivered to the extent that it was promised, but I still thought we'd get PvE. And I suppose technically we still are getting PvE, just without the very thing that was supposed to make PvE unique and replayable. The PvE exclusive abilities and skill trees for the characters. PvE events are still going to happen in the game, but they're going to come on a seasonal basis, bit by bit, and they aren't going to have the main thing that would have made the PvE replayable, the new abilities and skill trees. They are just going to have the usual kind of archives events, basically just more of those, which, yeah, that's a big letdown. So as I say, it's less that I'm devastated that the PvE isn't going to be as fun as it should be, and more that I'm like, well, what the fuck were you doing then? Because you definitely weren't working on the PvP. And I'm getting more and more concerned that the answer is they basically did fucking nothing during that entire time. I'm getting more and more concerned that not even a year's worth of work was done in that 3-year period. This whole time, the main thing that made me excited about the future of Overwatch 2 is the fact that I thought Overwatch 2 had a good shot of being a lot more stable in the long term, even if its initial release was going to be rough. The fact that they were drip-feeding us content and the release wasn't that explosive obviously wasn't the greatest for, public image, but I thought that it could have been a sensible move, and that they were likely doing it because they realized if they drop everything they have right now, then they are not going to be able to keep up with the constant stream of new content that the game needs to stay alive. And so I was actually completely fine with them giving us still a lot of content, but over a longer period of time and kind of slowly drip feeding it. That would mean we wouldn't have to worry about getting things that were unfinished and all that kind of thing. But now I'm really starting to get worried. I remember they said, I don't remember which video it is, but it was some video around the time that Overwatch 2 first launched. They were mentioning how they were already playtesting the Season 6 hero, and that, all the way back in the first season, and that, they planned these characters ahead very much in advance. And, I want to believe that, but I'm starting to lose faith in that if, well, not only did Lifeweaver release very clunky, and obviously I still think Lifeweaver's not as bad as some people say, I actually think he's really fun and all that, he's really clicked with me, but I can't argue that the way that his controls were when he released did feel like he was almost unfinished. And that was what? Just the Season 4 hero. If the Season 4 hero already released feeling a little unfinished, then I don't know how much I can trust them saying that the Season 6 hero was already in playtesting as early as Season 1. The other thing that really concerns me is just, okay, obviously the people saying that Overwatch is a dead game are being hyperbolic, and no, the game isn't dead. You can easily find more matches right now, there's still plenty of people playing. But I do think there's some truth to it in the long term, in that I have no idea how the fuck Overwatch 2 is ever going to grow from this point onwards. Let's be real for a second here. If you like Overwatch, but for whatever reason you stopped playing Overwatch 1, or maybe you never got to play Overwatch 1, why would you play Overwatch 2? The big answer is because it's free to play, especially for the people who never played Overwatch 1. However, it's been free to play since season 1, so I think everyone that we were going to get, for the most part, from it being free to play has already made the jump. So okay, beyond that, why would anyone come back to play Overwatch 2? And wow, not a lot of answers are there. The big thing we really have is just to try out the new characters, but this is what's kind of concerning. People used to care about new characters in Overwatch, but like, did any of you, at least outside of the Overwatch bubble, if any of you watching this in the Overwatch bubble, did any of you even know that Lifeweaver released when he, launched at the start of this season? Or did you hear it from me when I made a video on him? As far as I can see, it's a bit hard to tell, obviously, but it seems like outside the bubble of people who are already playing Overwatch anyway, no one really cares anymore when we add a new character. And considering all we really have to look forward to in the long term now is just the normal new characters that we're going to get and new maps, I really don't know what's going to bring anyone into the game. The PvE was the big promise for the future that gave us some long-term, potential. I realized that it was likely to take a while to come, and I realized that when it finally arrived, it probably wouldn't be able to deliver fully on every promise. But I thought at least it'd be able to somewhat realize the original vision to an extent that there would still be a lot of new casual players brought in by the less, pressuring and less competitive and sweaty nature of PvE compared to PvP. And now we don't have that. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how are we supposed to get any new players? I don't think that matters right now because the game's already got enough players. But like, a couple of years from now, when all the players we have right now get burned out, where are the players for Overwatch going to be? Who's going to want to stick around? Hell, obviously, for now, I think I'm going to stick around, but I don't even know. Maybe I won't stick around that long. And if even and clearly I care a lot about this game, and I clearly play defense for it more than most people, if even I am going to be not sticking around for that long, then Jesus Christ, the player base looks like it's going to shrink quite drastically unless they can get their shit together. And, I don't want to say it's impossible. They could get their shit together. At the end of the day, a lot of the things that were hindering development are out of the way. The fact that they are now solely focused on PvP means they're hopefully just not going to waste any more time on PvE. And as I say, I still believe that Team 4, the people actually developing Overwatch, are genuinely passionate and trying to do everything they can to keep the game alive. All that said, I have some concerns, especially just generally. I know it's the typical evil corporate bad, but like, Jesus fucking Christ, is Activision bad? And the fact that Activision currently still owns Blizzard, who obviously owns Team 4, and that the Microsoft buyout didn't go through, or at least it doesn't look like it's going to anymore. Yeesh, I'm concerned about the leadership, especially considering the Overwatch team desperately and clearly needs to be expanded, and it really could reach its potential if they simply expanded the development team, but they refuse to. So, yeah, that's my shortened, and believe it or not, that is shortened, take on the whole Overwatch 2 situation. I'm still going to play the game for now, but the big reason why it's really been a heavy blow to me is because it makes me worry about the future of the game. And that was the one thing that was really keeping me around before, is I genuinely thought the game had a bright future. We were just going to have to wait a while. Like, things aren't the best right now, but every single season that passes in Overwatch, the game's just going to get more content and it's just going to get better until eventually I could see it redeeming itself, getting back the respect it once lost. And now knowing that PvE isn't going to happen, even if I wasn't even going to play the PvE much, it does make me just feel a lot more pessimistic for the future of the game. I know this isn't exactly a very controversial opinion, but I know that a big tone setter is going to be when Season 6 comes out. We're going to get a new support in Season 6 alongside the first PvE event, which is basically, their watered down PvE. That's when we're going to be able to see, one, how watered down it's going to be, and two, we're going to see, obviously, a new character. I'm not going to lie, I think it's kind of a bad idea that they're putting these both in the same season, especially because what do we have to look forward to in Season 5, the next season? Like, obviously, I'm excited for it because I'm a nerd, and I, love this game in general, and so I know that Lifeweaver's supposed to be getting a rework in Season 5, but literally, if you ask me off the top of my head, even me, an Overwatch nerd, what is coming in Season 5? I could tell you a new map is coming. I think a new Sojourn animatic is coming. That's not actually gameplay content, it's just, an animatic for Sojourn to tell her story, which feels really weird we're getting that in Season 5 when, Sojourn's been around so much longer than that and was officially released all the way back in Season 1. That feels a bit weird. And there's the Lifeweaver rework. I can literally only name 3 things that are coming in Season 5. I couldn't tell you anything else that's happening in Season 5, which, Yeah, that's not great. Anyway, all that aside, by packing all their content into Season 6, I'm not only worried that attention will be split between the new character and the PvE, but on top of that, I feel like that means that's kind of when they're going to blow their load, you know? They're going to have a new character and a new, like, you know, game mode at the same time. And if people don't like that, then they are not going to stick around and wait 2 full seasons for the next character. Because Season 7 isn't going to have a new character, because it's every even season they add a new character. And Season 7 also doesn't have any PvE event planned. So once again, Season 5 and 7 here are looking very, very quiet. And it might turn out that they're better than we think. You know, Season 3 looked like it was going to be boring, and then it ended up being one of the best seasons of the game. But I don't know how many times we can count on them pulling it out of the hat like that. Okay, this is why I was even reluctant to record this video in the first place, because it gets to the point where I just start rambling. But I think I've gotten across everything I really need to get across. So here's where I just completely pivot into a different topic. You've all been fooled. I've baited you with Overwatch content, but now I'm going to talk about non-Overwatch stuff. One thing that I thought was really hilarious is, I'm not even kidding, I've been meaning to play Apex Legends for months now because I've heard people comparing it to Overwatch. I know it's not the same, but I didn't know that much about the game, and I wanted to give it a go. And I'm not kidding. Literally the night that I downloaded, Apex Legends was the night before the news broke, and I woke up the next day to play it once it had downloaded, and yeah, I got all this news. It kind of felt like fate. It kind of felt like the universe was trying to tell me something. And so I thought I'd give Apex a decent go. And I thought it was fun enough, but I couldn't really see it becoming my main game like with Overwatch. Certainly the game is fun, but I'm not one for battle royales. Not that I hate them or anything, but they're just not my kind of game. And mostly, while I do think some of the characters in this game are kind of cool, I also think it's kind of disappointing, especially after playing a game like Overwatch, that each character in Apex only has one passive, one ability, and one ultimate. And usually ultimates in Apex aren't anywhere near as strong as they are in Overwatch for balancing reasons. But this is where the double pivot comes in, because this video isn't even about Apex Legends. You see, during this whole fiasco, there's a memory that I was trying to repress. A memory of a game that I loved even more than Overwatch, but that is truly dead. Not dead in the sense that there aren't many people playing it. In fact, there's still a pretty big community of people who love the game. But dead in the sense that, well, the servers just literally aren't up anymore for a multiplayer game, and they haven't been for a while. And even the game itself is very, very, very difficult to get your hands on, and you have to jump through so many hoops just to be able to play the game, even just solo. And I was trying to repress this memory because as much as I love this game, I kind of didn't want to remember it. Genuinely, it just made me so sad to remember that this game was dead. And every single time I remembered it, it just made me feel really bummed out. Because I'm like, damn, I wish I could play it. And I know I can't. It's another game that kind of had a similar experience to Overwatch. But believe it or not, one that was even worse than Overwatch's. A game that came out just 1 year before Overwatch that was also a revolutionary team-based shooter game. Set in a sci-fi world with amazing world building and surprisingly well-written characters, with amazing character designs and super unique abilities. A game that also came under fire for its monetization, and came under fire so hard for it that it killed the game. A game that also tried to slap a 2 on the end of its name to try and save its life and go free to play, but by that time, it was already too late, and too many people were gone. And as I was playing through Apex, while I enjoyed the game enough, I couldn't help but constantly have the feeling in my head that these characters remind me of the characters from this other game. And because of that, it just makes me wish I was playing that game instead. But I can't anymore. So enough beating around the bush. Props to anyone who can actually guess it. I mean, obviously I know a bunch of you just probably going to cheat and put the answer in the comments anyway after I already tell you. But the game I'm talking about is Evolve. Evolve was a unique shooter because it had quite a few things that played differently from your average FPS. To start with, it was 4 versus 1 was its main gimmick. A team of 4 hunters versus one gigantic alien monster. The monster would obviously be far tankier and stronger than all the hunters, And as well as that, it would have access to more abilities to use to fight off the hunters, and obviously much less aim-based abilities, because usually you'd be just brawling them with your claws or whatever. You wouldn't usually be aiming a gun, because, well, you're a monster, you don't have a gun. Meanwhile, the hunters not only get access to a lot more tools and technology to compensate for the fact they're weaker than you, but they also get access to jetpacks. That being said, despite the jetpacks, in general, the monster is faster than the hunters. Even though they are very big, every monster has a unique way of getting around the map, which takes up stamina, but allows them to clear huge distances in short periods of time, which makes it really hard for any hunter to catch up with a monster. As the monster, you need to use this to your advantage, because when you start the game, the monster is actually weaker than the 4 hunters. It is really easy for the monster to be killed. However, the monster doesn't start the game by trying to kill the hunters. The monster starts the game with a 1-minute head start to explore the area, find wildlife to kill and eat to grow stronger, and hide from the hunters when they appear later. As the monster, you start out doing everything you can to hide from the hunters and run away from the hunters, growing stronger for every single moment that you're left unchecked, until you manage to evolve twice without being killed and reach stage 3, the strongest point you can reach as a monster. Once you reach stage 3, that's where you come for the hunters, and if the hunters try and hide from you, then you have your alternate win condition, destroying the power relay in the center of the map, which will instantly cause the hunters to lose, which you can only do once you reach stage 3. The hunters can only stop you from destroying the power relay if they're there to interrupt you doing it, and if they're hiding from you, they won't be able to do that. Meanwhile, of course, on the hunter's side, you are trying to find that monster as fast as possible. You want to fight it and kill it at stage 1 ideally, and not have to deal with the monster at stage 2 or 3. And not only would each hunter have a unique role to play, but there'd be multiple ways as well for you to try and figure out where the monster's gone. The monster would knock over trees as they walk by them, so if you found broken and knocked over trees on the ground, the monster's been there. Of course, because they're eating the animals, finding dead corpses of animals means the monster's been there. Obviously, you can hear the monster if they're close enough. The monster's huge, so they tend to make a lot of sound. But most importantly are the birds. Whenever the monster makes too much noise near a flock of birds, it will send them scattering into the air and give you a ping letting you know where the monster is. And even if the monster is clever enough to never startle any birds, every now and then the birds will still be attracted to their location because of carrion birds, vulture-like creatures that also want to feed off of the corpses of the creature that the monster kills. And because you have to kill the wildlife to grow stronger as the monster, eventually, even if you're perfect, you will attract some birds to where you are. So as the hunter, you need to use these signs alongside your abilities to track down the monster and try and kill it as fast as possible. The game has 4 roles each for the 4 hunters, and 3 of them are pretty standard. You've got your assault, your basic damage dealer, you've got your medic for healing, and you've got your support for providing buffs aside from healing. But then you've got your 4th role, the trapper, which is probably the most unique one in the game because it's very much something that could only exist and evolve. The trapper has a couple responsibilities. Mostly that they need to try and find out where the monster is when, you're trying to track it down, when you're not exactly sure where it is, when you can't see it. And of course, also, your job is to make sure the monster doesn't escape when you find them. Trappers do have some abilities often that are able to negate the monster's movements, they can't get away. But the main way that you trap a monster as the trapper is the trapper's signature ability, the mobile arena. This essentially just drops a huge holographic dome around you, and if the monster's stuck inside it, they won't be allowed to leave for a few minutes, basically giving you a few minutes of the monster being forced to fight you. However, the monster, if they're cunning, might try and get you down as fast as possible, because as a trapper, if you go down while your arena's up, then the dome goes down as well, and the monster's allowed to run away. As well as that, the monster will almost always know where the hunters are, because although the hunters are tiny to the monster, which can make them hard to spot, to help deal with that, the devs allowed the monster to smell, and his sense of smell will highlight the outlines of all creatures around him. So he'll always know when the hunters are on his tail because he'll see a big red outline around everyone that's coming after him. This not only makes the hunters obvious to spot for the monster, but also allows you to see them through walls. Each monster has a very different playstyle. Either way, hopefully I'm selling you on this, because to me, this was fucking awesome. So you might be thinking, well damn, this sounds sick. And let me tell you, it is sick. As I say, I think this is literally the best FPS game I've played in my life. But you might be thinking, well, if it was so good, how come I've not heard of it until now? How come you said the game's dead? How come it died out so fast? Well, it's a situation that I'm very sad about, but I can't exactly be too mad. Evolve was one of the few times that we actually saw backlash from outrage at like overpriced monetization in games actually work and, well, kill a game for being greedy. It's just, god damn, is it a fucking shame it had to be Evolve that happened to. Since again, I really think this is one of the best games I've played in my life, and it died because of the fact that people were so effective at boycotting the game for its greedy monetization. Essentially, this game was not cheap. Already, it was a pretty damn expensive game. I remember when I got it when I was brand new, I did get a version which came with some of the DLC for free, but my version was £80. It came with one of the DLC characters for free and some extra skins, but still, the game was £80. And then from there, the game has a total of 25 characters. However, only 15 of them are playable if you don't spend extra money. If you wanted to buy a DLC Hunter, that's £10. And if you wanted to buy a DLC Monster, that was £15. So, if I wanted to buy every character in the game, considering that I at least did get Behemoth, one of the monsters that was a DLC, for free by getting that special version of the game I was on about, not even worrying about buying the overpriced skins as well, if I just wanted to have all the playable characters in the game, I would need to spend a total of an extra £95 on top of a game that already cost $80 in the first place. That would be a total of £175 for the game and all the content in it. So yeah, I am not going to sugarcoat it. Obviously, as much as I do love this game and think the game on its own, just the gameplay, is fucking impeccable, I can't lie. Yeah, this was overpriced as fuck. And this was also back in 2015, so the whole people being sick of overpriced DLC and overpriced games sort of discourse was really in full swing. So people kind of just took one look at the prices in this game and just said, fuck this game. And again, I have really mixed feelings about that. On one hand, I'm really happy it happened in some ways, because it kind of did send a message, and it's very rare that that actually works. You know, it's very rare that people really do just look at a game with pernicious monetization and just say, fuck you for doing this, we're going to make your game fail because of that. It very rarely actually works out like that, and so in some ways I'm glad that we were able to like put our foot down and say, no, we're not dealing with this shit. But on the other hand, god damn, we lost one of the best games I think we've ever seen because of the fact that it had to be Evolve that was the victim of this. And the big thing that makes me sad about it is if the developers weren't going to budge on the prices, then I think it was warranted. But what I think was sad is the developers were actually very quick to correct their mistake. Very quickly, prices of the game and DLC went down, which is why I have actually played the DLC characters. Never in my life would I dream of paying £15 just for one new character in this game, but once it severely dropped to only £5 for a new monster and £4 for a hunter, then I did actually start buying the DLC because I thought that was a reasonable enough price now. And if that wasn't enough, they even, obviously, as I kind of alluded to earlier, made Evolve Stage 2 later, which was, funnily enough, almost an exact situation like Overwatch 2, where they relaunched the game as a free-to-play game with some other, like, minor tweaks to the way the game works. And until recently, I have never had the opportunity to play Evolve Stage 2. Unfortunately, the game only ever came out on PC, and I got Evolve on Xbox One. I didn't have my current PC until, I think, 2021, and so at the time I had to play on console. And they never brought Evolve Stage 2 to console. So I was stuck on Legacy Evolve, where characters were still stuck behind paywalls, and where the game didn't receive a whole bunch of other updates, as well as some new characters that were added that were exclusive to Evolve Stage 2. I was so desperate to try out Evolve Stage 2 that I had kept in my head for years that the first thing I was going to do when I got a gaming PC was get Evolve Stage 2. Literally, that was the first game I tried to get on my PC when I got it. And do you want to know what I saw when I typed in Evolve Stage 2 in the Steam store? That's right. By the time that I had gotten my PC, the servers had been taken down, and as a result, the publisher of the game, 2K, had requested that it be removed from the Steam store so that you could no longer, I say quote-unquote buy it. Obviously, it was a free-to-play game, but you can't put it in your library anymore. And if you didn't already have it in your library, that means there is no longer any way to get the game at all. If you just didn't get it when it was available, you just never get to fucking play it. Cool. And by the way, Evolve Stage 2 was a similar situation to Overwatch, where they made it so that Evolve Stage 2 replaced the original Legacy Evolve. I say that. If you have Evolve Stage 2 in your library, you can go into the settings on Steam and switch it to a quote-unquote beta, which is the Legacy version of Evolve. So you can still play Legacy Evolve, but you have to have Evolve Stage 2 in your library. It's not like Legacy Evolve has a separate listing on Steam. So Evolve as a whole is just no longer a game you can get on PC. You can only get it on console now, and if you get it on console, not only will you probably getting it second-hand, but you'll be playing a less updated version of the game, which also has no servers to play on. So my god, you really get a rough deal. All that said, you know that somehow I'm going to be able to play the game. I mean, you can watch the background footage right now. Clearly I am playing the game. Well, I gotta say, I got really goddamn lucky. As I said, I've been in the Evolve community server for quite a while, and there was one known method to still get the game, but it wasn't exactly straightforward. That being that if you could get a Steam key, as in like a code to get the game for free, then you could type that into Steam and still get the game even though it's not on the store anymore. Then you could play it like normal. However, at this point, I had given up on the idea of ever getting a Steam key for the game. I had already had the role that indicates that you need a Steam key for the game for just over a year at this point, and I still hadn't been given one. And I know that most people were selling off their keys, not just giving them out for free. I was also worried about the fact that we are running out of keys. There aren't that many left. I believe if you join the server now, they're not giving out any more. They're only giving more keys to people who already asked for one in the past, because we're going to run out soon enough. And so I really didn't have any hope of ever getting a key for the game. But you can probably see where this is going. Just recently, out of nowhere, after over a year of waiting, someone in the server handed me a key to the game. And it has been surreal finally being able to play Evolve Stage 2 for the first time in my life. Although, of course, it does suck that I still have to play solo versus AI because there's no servers to play with other people on. I am still super glad that I could even just experience this version of the game that I was never able to touch before. I'm especially glad that I'm going to be able to try out the 6 characters completely exclusive to Stage 2, because, honestly, I'm kind of worried about these characters, as if the game itself isn't already hard enough to get your hands on. Once we run out of Steam keys, there is going to be no way that you can play Evolve Stage 2 anymore, at all. And so there's genuinely a risk of these characters just being wiped from the internet with no record of their existence. Well, I say that, there'll be wikis and all that kind of thing, but you know what I mean. So I wanted to play with these characters a bit, get some opinions on them, and make some videos explaining what they do and how I feel about these characters, considering that, as I mentioned, there's a good chance a lot of people will literally never be able to play these characters. I mean, at least the characters in the original game, Legacy Evolve, at least they still would be playable if you bought like a disc version of the game, which you can always just pop into your console or whatever. Being PC exclusive and off of the Steam store with the Steam keys running out, Evolve Stage 2 may eventually hit a point where you just simply can never play it again. Anyway, I've had a lot of trouble thinking about how I want to go about this video because I would love to gush for hours about Evolve. But I think that's best done in a separate video because this video already is scattered enough as it is. I just wanted to do this as a bit of a 2-in-1 where I, 1, address the whole situation with Overwatch, and then 2, connect that to introducing you to this game that I'm going to be making some videos on in future that I imagine a decent amount of you aren't that informed on. Now you know the story of what Evolve is and what happened to it, and why I fucking love this game. Well, at least some of it. There's a lot more nuance to the game that I want to get into, but again, the video will get too long if I get into it. I could bring up the lore of the game genuinely being some of the most enthralling lore I have seen in any video game I've played, which I was not expecting going into it, to the point where I'd say it is the most immersive sci-fi world I have seen in any game. I could get into how some of these characters, not only in their, literally how they're like as a character, but in their gameplay and their designs, are some of my favorite characters in like any video game in terms of how fun they are to play. I could get into how characters like Maggie, the starter trapper, I think are one of the most well-designed beginner characters I've ever seen in a video game. But all of these things are things I could go on for long enough about that I could make an entire separate video on them. So probably best I just shut up at this point. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one where I probably will be talking about Evolve. See ya.